Mangwana Nimalelepo Vukenjani Krekwas, welcome to Africa. Good morning, your portal into Africa's potent stories. Today we cover Uganda setting January 15 for its general election as Museveni seeks another term. Gen Z protesters in Madagascar challenge the military-appointed prime minister, and Mozambique's Venancio Mondlane denies calls for street demonstrations amid commemorations for slain lawyer Elvino Diaz. In France, former President Sarkozy begins a prison term linked to Gaddafi's campaign financing, while Ivory Coast promotes reconciliation marriages to ease ethnic tensions. UN at 80 reflections highlight youth engagement and Namibia's long-term partnership with the United Nations, plus Namibia's midterm budget review as deficit rises to 4%. Watch Africa Good Morning on DSTV 285, GoTV25, 1up2.com, and NTV Africa on YouTube. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top stories shortly.
Life is unpredictable, and one needs to be protected against any eventuality. Get Santam legal access from as little as 50 Namibian dollars a month for when you find yourself in need of legal representation due to civil cases, criminal prosecution, and family matters such as divorce, child maintenance, and custody. It also covers labor disputes, disciplinary hearings, and unfair dismissal or retrenchment. With Santam Legal Access, you'll receive free legal advice on almost every legal aspect, whether the specific matter is covered by your policy or not. For true peace of mind and legal protection when you need it most, call us on 061 292 8000. Santam. This is freedom.
In our top stories on Africa, good morning. Uganda's Electoral Commission has set January 15, 2026 as the date for the nation's general election, where President Yoweri Museveni will seek to continue his tenure approaching 5 decades. Museveni, Africa's fourth longest serving leader, has previously amended the constitution twice to remove age and term limits, maintaining his office since 1986. His main challenger is expected to be 43-year-old Bobi Wine, a former pop star turned politician who claims the last election involved ballot stuffing and voter intimidation, allegations dismissed by ruling party officials. 6 other candidates representing smaller parties will also contest the presidency alongside parliamentary elections. Museveni, a former rebel, is credited with stabilizing Uganda, fostering economic growth, and combating HIV and AIDS, though critics cite human rights abuses and corruption scandals under his government. Economic optimism is tied to the expected start of crude oil exports from fields operated by Total Energies and China's Sinuk, projected to boost growth. Uganda continues to exert regional influence with troops deployed in Somalia, South Sudan, the DRC, and Equatorial Guinea for peacekeeping and military cooperation. In Madagascar, Gen Z protesters who contributed to the ousting of President Andry Rajoelina have expressed opposition to the prime minister named by the new military ruler, Colonel Michael Randrianirina. On Monday, Randrianirina appointed businessman Herinti Salama Rajonarivelo as prime minister, prompting Gen Z Mada to condemn the selection as non-transparent and inconsistent with their vision for structural change. The group questioned Rajonarivelo's links to the previous government and vowed to monitor the administration's actions. Protests driven by frequent water and power outages began nearly a month ago and escalated into broader political demands, eventually leading to Rajoelina going into hiding. The coup leader thanked the youth for their role in the transition after being sworn in on October 17, stating the nation was entering a new chapter. Gen Z Mada stopped short of declaring specific actions if the appointment was not reversed, but reaffirmed their commitment to preventing the repetition of failed methods. Demonstrations continue to shape the country's political trajectory as citizens evaluate the new leadership and the pace of promised reforms. Venancio Mondlane, Mozambique's former presidential candidate, denied encouraging street demonstrations amid a police warning against actions that could disrupt public order. Unlike calls following the October 2024 elections, Mondlane urged citizens to reflect on the nation that they aspire to inhabit, coinciding with the first anniversary of the murder of his lawyer Diaz and election agent Paulo Guambe. Memorial ceremonies for Diaz in Maputo proceeded without incident, while a planned Nomola March Sofala province was banned, though party officials used the gathering to distribute membership cards. Mondlane hailed Diaz as the party's first hero, emphasizing his symbolic role in resistance and struggle. The Mozambican Bar Association criticized the National Criminal Investigation Service for failing to progress in solving Diaz's murder, highlighting the erosion of trust in justice. At the time of his assassination, Diaz had worked on appeals against perceived electoral fraud. The Bar Association underscored the ongoing threats to the legal profession and reaffirmed its commitment to ethical practice, praising Diaz's courage and professionalism as a standard for the nation's lawyers. In our next story, Nicolas Sarkozy has become the first French ex-president jailed since World War II, beginning a 5-year sentence for conspiring to fund his 2007 election campaign with Libyan money. Leaving his Paris home, he was applauded by over 100 supporters while holding hands with his wife, Carla Bruni Sarkozy, as he entered La Sante prison's isolation wing. The 70-year-old maintains his innocence and has lodged an appeal, asserting that truth will ultimately prevail. His cell measures 9 to 11 square meters with a toilet, shower, desk, small TV, and 1 hour of daily exercise in solitary confinement. Legal representatives described the imprisonment as disproportionate, noting the isolation and security measures. Sarkozy was convicted alongside Brice Hortefeux and Claude Gaunt for their roles in clandestine campaign financing from Libya, though he was cleared of personally receiving the funds. He will also face appeals in the Bayamilon case and previously served under electronic monitoring for attempting to bribe a magistrate. Despite these legal challenges, Sarkozy intends to maintain his dignity and continue intellectual engagement, bringing books including a biography of Jesus and Alexandra Dumas, the Count of Monte Cristo, into prison with him. In Duekoe, Ivory Coast, peace activists are promoting reconciliation marriages to reduce tensions between rival communities ahead of Saturday's presidential election. Dozens of couples from opposing ethnic groups have married through initiatives led by local nonprofit Limpia, which provides support and counseling for unions crossing historic divides. Martinez Pode from Aguera Group and Elisabel Caudio Aho Abuele married in 2012 despite family objections rooted in post-election massacre fears, demonstrating the approach's potential to foster harmony. Limpia plans an additional 10 weddings early next year to continue promoting coexistence. Past violence arose during the 2010-11 post-election crisis, with hundreds killed and disputes over land in cocoa-producing regions like Duekoe. Mixed marriages are viewed as building intergenerational ties that compel shared heritage and reduce community friction. Incumbent Alassane Ouattara, seeking a 4th term, aims to maintain political stability while boosting economic growth. Human rights groups have critiqued amnesties for alleged war crimes, but local advocates argue grassroots initiatives such as inter-ethnic marriages are essential for sustainable peace and reconciliation. Those have been our top stories on Africa. Good morning. Shortly, we're going to be talking about Namibia's midterm budget review. Namibia's Finance Minister Erika Shafuda, during the 2025-26 midterm budget review presented on October 21, announced that Namibia's budget deficit has risen to 4% of GDP for 2024-25, up from 2% in 2023-24, following a 3.2 billion Namibian dollar rise in operational spending to address emergencies and social needs. Public debt climbed by 1.3%, reaching 167.2 billion from 153.7 billion Namibian dollars the previous year, while total revenue outturn stood at 36.6 billion Namibian dollars, 40% of estimates by end September 2025. Under the theme Beyond 35 for a Prosperous Future, the review emphasizes fiscal consolidation alongside strategic social investment. The Ministry of Health and Social Services received priority reallocations, including 185 million Namibian dollars for hiring 1,537 additional health workers and 450 Namibian dollars for an emergencies fund. Now, key infrastructure projects include ongoing renovations at Katutura Intermediate Hospital and 40% completion of Phase 1 of the 500-bed Commerce District Hospital. The Ministry of Sport, Youth and National Service secured 1.3 billion, a 46% increase, with 63% for sports, 24% for youth programs and 13% for administration. 814 million Namibian dollars was proposed for Vote 27, supporting tertiary education subsidies and reviving the high-performance sports program. Let's have a look at the economic indicators. Heading into more economic news, this time from broader Africa. South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, reported quote-unquote positive vibes from the U.S. Congress regarding the potential renewal of the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Speaking at the FT Africa Summit, and this was in London, Lamola described ongoing bilateral trade discussions with the United States as productive, raising hopes that the free trade agreement, which expired just last month, could be reinstated before year-end. The talks aim to bolster continental trade and investment opportunities, enhancing economic relations between South Africa and the United States. Lamola's remarks indicate optimism, and this is on both sides, with negotiations focused on aligning legislative and commercial frameworks. Successful renewal of AGOA could strengthen South Africa's exports, provide market access for regional products, and support broader economic integration across Africa. While discussions continue, the positive signals from lawmakers reflect a willingness to engage collaboratively, potentially paving the way for renewed trade incentives that benefit African industries, employment, and economic growth in alignment with broader continental development goals. And Swiss-based Coca-Cola Hellenic Bottling Company has agreed to purchase a 75% stake in Coca-Cola Beverages Africa, CCBA, for $2.6 billion, expanding operations into 14 additional African markets. The acquisition grants HBC operational control over one of the continent's largest bottlers, responsible for roughly 40% of Coca-Cola beverage sales in Africa. The deal, valued at $3.4 billion, includes an option to acquire the remaining 25% within 6 years. CCBA's portfolio spans popular beverages such as Coca-Cola, Fanta, Sprite, and Minute Maid, with energy drinks like Monster in select markets. The acquisition is expected to enhance the regional value chain, fostering industrial growth, local sourcing, and small and medium enterprise participation. In South Africa, concerns over potential job losses have emerged amid restructuring, with unions urging protection of employment. HBC plans a secondary listing on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, signaling commitment to the continent. The deal reinforces Coca-Cola's strategic shift in Africa, aiming to strengthen long-term investment, operational sustainability, and position the continent as a hub for beverage manufacturing and innovation in response to a growing youthful consumer base. We're going to take a quick break before we return to talk about the United Nations at 80.
Life is unpredictable, and one needs to be protected against any eventuality. Get Santam legal access from as little as 50 Namibian dollars a month for when you find yourself in need of legal representation due to civil cases, criminal prosecution, and family matters such as divorce, child maintenance, and custody. It also covers labor disputes, disciplinary hearings, and unfair dismissal or retrenchment. With Santam Legal Access, you'll receive free legal advice on almost every legal aspect, whether the specific matter is covered by your policy or not. For true peace of mind and legal protection when you need it most, call us on 061 292 8000. Santam. This is freedom.
Now, in this excerpt from last night's evening review program, Hopolang Pororo, UN Resident Coordinator, and Nawa Labidi, WFP Country Director and Representative, reflect on UN at 80 and Namibia's decades-long partnership with the UN. They discuss the significance of 80 Voices for 80 years and how the UN is engaging youth to shape a more inclusive future. UN is celebrating 80 years globally. What does this milestone mean, not just for the world, but particularly for Namibia?
Good afternoon, and thank you, Ashwin, for giving us this opportunity to come and share a little bit on what UN at 80 means. So, as you have said, and I really would like to pick from there, is that we are the glue that brings countries together, no matter what size the country is. But since 1945, 8 years ago, we have been doing this and bringing countries together and doing what no one country could ever do. So Namibia has been part of the UN, and this UN at 80 for us is really a celebration and a renewal of purpose for the institution itself. And what I would like to also mention is that, where we are right now with the UN, there's a lot of attack, and the attack of particularly the principles of the United Nations. And also too, the conflicts continue, climate change continues, hunger, poverty, all that continues, and we are really far from meeting all the targets of the SDGs. So I would like to also pick up one quotation which I think is so apt for the conversation that we are having today, and I'm quoting our Secretary General. And he says, "We are moving towards a multipolar world, but without strong multilateral institutions, multipolarity has its risks. As Europe learned in the First World War, to meet these challenges, we must not only defend the United Nations, we must strengthen it." That is the purpose of Agenda 2030, the Pact for the Future, and the UN 80 initiative to renew the foundations of international cooperation and ensure that we can deliver for people everywhere. So taking what our SG has said and bringing it down to Namibia, the UN has been with Namibia from the time of its independence, and even as we continue to engage right now with the UN, with the government of the Republic of Namibia. And what we are basically looking at is how are we working together to help Namibia to achieve the priorities which have been articulated in their various national development plans. And whether we are talking of governance, equality, social transformation, because these are areas, broad areas where we've been working together. This, I think, demonstrates then our commitment, and as well as Namibia's commitment to multilateralism. So really, as you ask and say, what does this milestone mean for Namibia and the world? It means basically that we have to continue to engage with the Namibian government. Of course, the institution being relevant, agile, for us to be able to meet the changing landscape as we see it.
Yes, thank you for that. Very, very well said. And I do feel like the quote from Secretary General Antonio Guterres was also, very reflective of the times. And I have to be very honest. I didn't expect that much frankness, and I truly appreciate that, without a doubt. Now, the theme is 80 voices for 80 years, and I think that it is absolutely powerful. What inspired this theme, and how does it possibly reflect Namibia's journey with the United Nations?
Thank you for that as well. So the theme really was trying to look at what the UN has been supporting the government of Namibia for the past 80 years. So we tried then to get the 80 voices for 80 years, and then looking along the whole life, let me say the life cycle, young people, youth, adults, elderly, and to get their understanding of how they have seen the work the work that the UN has been doing in Namibia, in terms of achievements, in terms of some of the challenges, in terms of the hope. So it was really trying to be inclusive of the entire population of the Namibian country, of Namibia, because especially when we say we started the journey with Namibia during independence, when you look for somebody 70s, 80s, they know what the role the UN played then. And when you look at a young person, they can say, oh yeah, we've heard this. And when you look at this younger ones, then they also might be a bit, have their own perspectives, as well as looking at those who are living with disabilities. So it was not just saying, let's just take one segment of the population, but let's look across the entire spectrum and pick a few voices. So that is really what inspired that.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning throughout the broadcast. DSTV 285, GoTV 25, oneup2.com, and NTV Africa on YouTube is precisely where you can find us. And do keep in mind, on oneup2.com, if you click the echo icon, you can have a look at this episode again, as well as other fantastic NTV programs. Because on oneup2.com, Echo Primetime truly is anytime. This has been a wonderful show. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow on the 23rd of October as we continue to dig into Africa's most potent stories. Swera Jakanaka.